Educational Communications and this station present Environmental Directions with Nancy Pearlman. On this series, we explore the effects of human influence on the Earth's ecosystems and discuss solutions to environmental problems which affect the quality of life on this planet. Environmental Directions gives you the kind of information you need to help you participate in decisions impacting your community, the nation, and the world. Now, here's your host, Nancy Pearlman.
Hello. For the next half hour, we are going to be talking about marine rescue, rehabilitation, and release, especially for green turtles, with my guest, Dr. Lance Adams, who is a veterinarian and director of the veterinary services at the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach, California. He is also president of Marine, which is a nonprofit for marine animal rescue. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Hi, Nancy. I'm glad to be here.
Welcome back to Environmental Directions. You've been doing incredible work here, taking care of many different kinds of marine animals, not just mammals, reptiles, fish. But today, we got to see what you did to a wild green sea turtle that had been caught in a fishing net, had to have its flipper removed. You brought it back to life, and in a few weeks, you're going to release it back into the wild?
Sure. That's why we gathered here today at the aquarium, to kind of celebrate the opening of a new rehabilitation center and to talk about how we go through that process with sea turtles to eventually get them back out into the wild so they can go about living their turtle lives.
It's going to be released here in Southern California. We have sea turtles all the time here?
Yeah, so that's often fairly shocking to people. They usually associate sea turtles with warm tropical places, but sea turtles can inhabit areas with water temperatures in various ranges, all the way from tropical down to very cold water temperatures, depending on the type of sea turtle. This particular sea turtle was rescued from the San Gabriel River, which also might surprise people, like sea turtles in rivers. But yes, sea turtles can move from the ocean, the coastal ocean habitat, into the river mouths, bays, channels, things that they have access to in their search for food and warm water and a nice environment to live in.
Is this an endangered species?
So sea turtles globally have different statuses, all the way from being of less concern all the way to being critically endangered, depending on the type of sea turtle that it is. Green sea turtles, which we commonly see here and are mostly make up the sea turtles that we get in rehabilitation, are internationally, through the International Union of Conservation of Nature, no longer listed as endangered. They were delisted because the population of sea turtles has been consistently increasing over the years due to about 50 years of conservation work globally to try and help protect and recover green sea turtles.
I've seen wild sea turtles, rehabilitated sea turtles. I've seen sea turtles coming up to nest in Texas, Mexico, Central America, many different places. Are these the same species? How many species are there?
It's debatable. Sometimes people say there's 8 species, but typically it's agreed that there's about 7 species of sea turtles globally. In this geographic area, we really see green sea turtles, olive ridley sea turtles, occasionally loggerhead sea turtles, and very, very rarely would we see a leatherback sea turtle. They tend to be in colder, more northern water areas. But the other sea turtle is one that lives in Australia, and other ones that live in tropical areas, the hawksbill sea turtle.
This looked rather large. What is the size of the turtle? And explain the difference between the turtle and the tortoises.
Yeah, so the sea turtle we saw in rehabilitation today is a subadult green sea turtle, approximately in the 15 to 20 year range. She weighs between 80 and 85 pounds, and adult weight up to several hundred pounds when they're fully mature. This sea turtle, we believe, is a female because she's close to being mature and she's not displaying characteristics of a male sea turtle, so we believe she'll be a female, but that's not 100% sure until they're a little bit bigger than she is.
Are all turtles the same size? I know that tortoises have a harder shell. I didn't see a hard shell on the sea turtle here.
Sure, so there's a fairly wide range of characteristics in shells between different types of turtles. So a lot of people distinguish tortoises from turtles by their lifestyle. So whether they're partially aquatic, living in aquatic environment, or they're living completely on land. And then also between between aquatic sea turtles and terrestrial sea turtles is another distinguishing factor there. But certainly a lot of the land turtles have developed extremely hard shells. Their shells are made up of their skeleton. So it's actually their fused rib bones that form the top part of their shell that's covered in keratin plates. For the ones who stay out of water, that's certainly harder than the ones that we see in water like sea turtles. Sea turtles maintain more flexibility in their shell and a lot of sensitivity. They can sense very delicate touches on their shell. They have good sensation there. The keratin or scale layers are a little bit thinner. And if you felt a sea turtle, it would range in feeling from smooth and hard to even sometimes a little more like hard rubber. So there's a little more softness to it.
I saw it swimming around in a tank. Was the water from the ocean, or do you make special seawater?
Wow, that's a complex question. I hope I don't spend too much time answering that. Sea turtles can survive in fresh water for short periods of time. It's not ideal for their skin and shell condition, but they can live in it. They breathe air, so they don't depend on the salinity of the water for their survival. This sea turtle, the environment that it's in, and they go through the rehabilitation can change depending on their condition. So when they first come in, if they're very debilitated and weak, they might not be able to lift their head up out of the water to get a good breath of air, and they could potentially drown. So in those cases, we might have the sea turtle dry and on a pad in a containing unit until it gets stronger. Once it can start lifting its head and we feel like it's safe to go into the water, then it can go into water. If that turtle is dehydrated, very dehydrated, one of the ways we can manage that is by putting the turtle into fresh water rather than salt water. And as the turtle drinks the water around it, it gets more hydrated because its body is used to more saline environments. So the fresh water can hydrate it really quick. But after a short period of time, we do want to transition those animals to seawater, which is what their bodies are more adapted to.
It looked like it was eating lettuce, but I don't think they find lettuce in the ocean.
That's true. Nutritionally, some different types of lettuce and feeding a variety of different types of lettuces can provide a similar nutrient profile to the algae that sea turtles eat in the wild. Interestingly, of the commercial produce that's available, because turtles eat a lot of food, we can't go out and just harvest the food items for them on a daily basis. We have to have a source of food in more volume. And so commercial produce, the thing that's really close to their seagrass diet is going to be bell peppers nutritionally. So we do offer that turtle bell peppers as part of its diet. So it gets different types of lettuce, a lot of romaine, leafy lettuces, peppers, and that's a different type of food item than they would normally see in the wild. But sea turtles are very adaptable with their diet. They're kind of a bite it and try it species. So if they see something floating along and it looks like it could be a food item to them, they'll try and eat it, see if it is actually edible. And that gets them into trouble sometimes, especially in our polluted ocean areas where they could be trying to eat things that are non-digestible and could be bad for them.
We hear about that all the time, of the plastic in the ocean and in the waters and the animals eating it, and they think it's food, it's not nutritional, and it clogs up their stomachs and they die from eating human pollution.
Yeah, that's true. So sea turtles are definitely a marine species that is impacted by pollution and plastic in the environment, as well as other things, not necessarily just plastic, but any type of human drive materials that they could get entangled in, fishing gear, things like that they might mistake for food or just get trapped in.
The sea turtle that you're going to be releasing was entrapped in a fishing net. You had a picture of the hook in the turtle. What, as a doctor of veterinary science, medicine, do you have to do to help that turtle get that hook out, get it untangled, but then its flipper seemed to have been damaged and you had to actually amputate it? What did you do?
The sea turtle that we saw in rehabilitation today in our new rehabilitation area has a complex history. It's had a lot of work done to it. It's been here about 11 months in rehabilitation and trying to remediate and restore it back to its health. Initially, when it stranded, it was entangled in some fishing gear, which caused a severe constriction injury where the fishing line was cutting into its tissues on its right flipper, nearly all the way down to the bone. Restricted blood flow, nerve function, all the things that need to get out to that part of the tissue's body, and resulted in that death of that flipper. So by the time we rescued that turtle, where it was identified and rescued, it was advanced, and that flipper was actually starting to decompose. Very quickly, we realized that this had been happening for a long time, was something that we urgently needed to deal with. The affected part of the flipper, first the line was removed, and then we did perform surgery to remove a lot of the damaged tissue that was in the area that was constricted, which involved amputating the flipper of that animal so that it could heal quickly and then get back to living its life out in the ocean.
When you are doing surgery on an animal, can the visitor watch you, or do you like a little privacy?
Visitors can actually see us performing all different types of procedures, including surgery at the Marine Animal Care Center Veterinary Hospital. We have windows that open up into our procedural rooms where people can stand and watch, educators that are available to answer questions about what we're doing while we're doing it, and we don't shy away from it too much. A lot of people think about, well, how does that impact what you're doing? Does it distract you? And it really doesn't. At this point, I am able to focus on the work that I'm doing specifically, and I get a little bit of tunnel vision to where I don't see what's happening around me. I know it's there, but it's not intentional to try and not influence what people see. Everything's open to them. We're not prohibiting them from viewing anything in particular. If there is something that I need privacy for or real attention to detail, we do have the ability to put down blinds over the windows so that we can do procedures without distractions, but that very rarely has happened.
I'm curious where you got your training to treat a sea turtle. And here at the Aquarium of the Pacific, you have hundreds of different species, thousands of different animals. You have to treat them, and they're all different. And I think most veterinary schools are treating domesticated cows and horses and other animals, not the wildlife. Is there a special training for people like you who have to deal with unusual species that generally the vets that we go to with our cats and dogs don't treat?
Yes, certainly there's ways as you go through training, both in school and post-graduation, that you can get experience as a veterinarian working with zoo or wildlife species as a specialty, and marine species, even in that group, is another little smaller subspecialty. So I myself went through specific training while I was in veterinary school to get opportunities to start learning about the care of aquatic animals. And then after school, I completed an internship in aquarium medicine at the New England Aquarium in Boston for a year. And then I accepted the job here. And then as part of that too, I study a lot, research things a lot, read current journals that are talking about advances in care for these animals, and participate in professional conferences where we go every year and learn about what other people are learning about these animals and how we can apply it to caring for the animals both in managed care in aquariums and wild populations.
You have published in many peer-reviewed journals. Do you write up every animal that you rescue and let other people know what you did and what can be done and how you did it?
It really depends. With the wildlife information and stranding data, we often share through network conferences. So the West Coast Sea Turtle Stranding Symposium is a great place that we participate in to share our information about how our rehabilitation program is going. And then we certainly do participate when possible in professional conferences with either clinical research projects that we've learned about how we've treated or successfully managed certain cases in zoo or wild animals. But it's the one way we all learn, and we believe that, or I believe that, sharing that information with my colleagues and learning from my colleagues too is really necessary to be successful in this specialty.
Both professionally and as a volunteer, where you're president of the organization called Marine, you are sharing that information. And what I find interesting is that Marine deals with the 3 R's, and that's not writing, reading, and arithmetic. It's rescue, rehabilitation, and release.
Sure, those are the 3 main components that go into sort of dealing with these animals that need help. In addition to my role here at the aquarium as a veterinarian, I also involved in a board as the president for an organization, another nonprofit that supports the rehabilitation of another wildlife species, and that's marine animals, seals, sea lions. That's something great that I'm glad to be a volunteer participant in on their board.
You're focused on the animal. You have great professional staff to help you, but here at the aquarium, there are great educators who are volunteers, and docents are always welcome to participate. Since you are working with the animals most most of the time. When you do talk to the visitors, what do they ask you about the most?
I think the most common questions are really the basic ones, like, what are you doing? Or how is that animal going to survive? Or how did that problem happen? And we will share that information with the guests because we want them to see the transparency of how we care for the animals as well as learn from it. An example is a role model when people see us, that we are really living up to our mission statement, which talks about stewardship of the oceans and its inhabitants and ecosystems. And I think by them seeing the effort that we go through to help these animals, the extent that we go through to make sure our animals are healthy and provided good care when they're here with us at the aquarium, I think it demonstrates to people that they're important, that the animals are important, and that they should do something if they can to also try and help them and have good stewardship over our lands and natural places and animals.
We're going to talk more about marine life, treating them, rehabilitating them, enjoying them, releasing them in the wild, seeing them in aquariums, when we return in a moment with my guest, Dr. Lance Adams.
Environmental Directions with Nancy Pearlman continues with further discussion of the world's critical ecological issues. For more information, you may call 310-559-9160 or go to www.ecoprojects.org. Now, here's Nancy.
I'm speaking with Dr. Lance Adams, who is a veterinarian and Director of Veterinary Services at the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach, California. We have been talking about your recent rehabilitation of a green sea turtle, and you're going to be releasing it. How do you decide when it no longer has to stay at the aquarium but can go back into the wild?
Like you mentioned, our ultimate goal is to get these sea turtles back to the wild where they can return to their lives. The process of determining that they're healthy is we're going to look at the animal's appearance and behavior primarily to look for anything that looks abnormal to us. So any external problems that we can physically identify. We look at that animal's body weight. We look at it compared to its size. So we measure it, we weigh it. We also investigate that animal's health by looking at its behaviors, like is it eating? Is it swimming normally? What looks like it's not working quickly? Is the animal very thin or emaciated because it may be sick? We also take radiographs to evaluate that animal's insides, to look at its bony skeleton, as well as determine if it's ingested something that it shouldn't that could be causing problems in its GI tract. We also typically run a blood panel on those animals, just like you would on a human or other animal, to determine if its body systems are working normally, and that can also give us a clue into what might be wrong with it. If it has a high white blood cell count, we know there's inflammation or infection somewhere that we have to deal with. If it has elevated liver or kidney enzymes, we know that it could be dehydrated or have an infection in one of those organs that's causing those values to be elevated. And then we go through the process of making a list of what all of the problems are that we can identify, what we think they might be caused from, and then we start approaching them with treatment or therapy to remediate those problems and then recheck to determine that those things are starting to become more normal. The qualifications for us to release a sea turtle is going to be, is it eating appropriately? Does it have good body condition? Normal mental responses? Can it navigate properly and swim? If we release it back out into its environment, can it forage and find food on its own? So if it can do all of those things and then its physical exam and blood tests and x-rays are normal, then it's ready to go.
I'm all in favor of animals in the wild, but yet we're at an aquarium and you have captive animals here. How did you decide to release this sea turtle rather than keep it for future exhibits?
This animal was not brought into the aquarium as part of our collection. It's maintained through our rehabilitation program. We distinguish between those two things. Now, at different institutions and here at the Aquarium of the Pacific, some of our animals may have been brought in through rehabilitation and then not be able to be released because their health problem makes it impossible for them to either survive in the wild or have reasonable welfare. And at that point, we would apply for a permit to be able to continue to manage those animals in aquarium care so that they could live out their lives with some protections from the things that would make them not survive out in the wild because of their ailment. Those animals can live out their lives here and then also be ambassadors to our guests who come from the wild. A lot of times we do also receive animals not just from the wild, but that are produced used at other institutions like our aquarium, through other AZA institutions where animals are held in managed care. Those populations can grow and they can have offspring, and then we can acquire those offspring. And so they have a little bit of a different function and role than the animals that are out in the wild. We see a difference in both of those things. We don't want to bring every sea turtle that we see out in the wild in here to keep at the aquarium, and we want to distinguish the animals that are in managed care and the animals that are wild from pets. These animals are not pets, whether you see them here at the aquarium and we're taking care of them, or they're in the wild.
That's so important to let people know that wild animals are not to be in our homes. We need to have just the domesticated animals that can be in with the families.
Yeah, that's correct. I agree. Not every type of animal makes a great pet, and even if we can make them our pets, not every animal is amiable to having a good quality of life as a pet. And so people have to be cautious about the needs of that animal before they decide to obtain a wild species as a pet, a non-domesticated animal, and be prepared for all of the baggage that comes along with having that animal as a pet, all the responsibilities. Some of these animals can live for very long times, and you're not usually set up to deal with that. Like tortoises, for example, which someone might have as a pet, can live into the decades and decades, almost a century of life. Sea turtles similarly are known to live over 70 years. So these types of animals are a huge commitment to be able to take care of and manage their health and welfare as a pet.
We're here today to dedicate the new sea turtle rehabilitation area, 4,000-gallon rehabilitation pool to accommodate the rescued sea turtles. I saw a ribbon cutting. It was really exciting to be part of this new experience. But when people come to the aquarium, what else can people see and do?
Certainly, the visitors that come to the aquarium are going to be able to observe the animals in the homes that we've created for them. We really hope that people will, through that experience, develop the interest and a bond with these animals and learn about the importance of biodiversity, importance about all the different animals and ecosystems on our planet, and learn something to decide to make a change in their life that could impact how we overall live in our world, cohabitate with all of these wildlife species, do something to improve that relationship. There's plenty of things to see here, a lot of variety in habitats, a lot of variety of animals, tons of information that people can gain and learn from in signage and displays and audio-visual presentations.
They can see the animals in the tanks. There are interactive displays that seem to be as much fun for the adults as the children. You have films, you have touch pools where people can actually feel some animals. Is that dangerous for the animals, and what can they touch?
It's a good question, and welfare is a primary concern of our animal management team here at the aquarium, and so we prioritize animal welfare highly. And so animals in touch pools, we have both an assessment program where we evaluate how those animals are doing on a very regular basis to see if they are becoming impacted. And if they are, we are remediating that through activities to lessen that.
I'm delighted to have you back on the program to talk about some of your work. We need to do it more often because you're caring for so many different animals and they all have special needs, special attention. If people can't immediately come to see the aquarium, they can see lots of pictures and get more information by going to the website. Even though you're called the Aquarium of the Pacific, your website is aquariumofpacific.org.
Sure, yeah, we've shortened up the website address there to make it easier to type into the computer.
You're not working independently. You do share information with other aquariums and also with partnerships with the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, the National Marine Fisheries Service, and many other groups, governmental agencies, nonprofits. Do businesses and foundations support your work?
Yeah, so we have a lot of partners in the rehabilitation program and in a lot of our conservation efforts with various species that we deal with here at the aquarium. We also receive a lot of donor support from individual families and foundations and businesses businesses that all support the aquarium and our role in conservation activities locally, regionally, globally.
I'm just in awe of all the different kinds of programs that you have, because most people think just come to the aquarium, look at the animals, but you're doing so much more. You do believe in conservation, and so you've got these rescue programs. We're talking about the sea turtles. You've worked with the Monterey Bay Aquarium with their sea otter surrogacy program. You've got the mountain yellow-legged frogs, which I think we've talked about in the past, and you partner with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and other organizations. You have breeding programs, white abalone, sunflowers, sea stars, even artificial insemination in sharks. And you do field work. You go out and try and get more information. How do you decide with all the different species that are here which ones you're going to be focusing on?
Our organization meets leadership-wise to determine which projects we will want to get involved in, and there can be a lot of different criteria for that. It could be based upon need and urgency of the situation. It could be because we want to focus on an animal that's regionally important or visible. It could be an animal species or project that we get involved with because we have that area of expertise in our staff. But largely, we try and prioritize our projects and the funding sources that go into supporting those projects towards things that are going to have the most impact for the most vulnerable species.
Your field work by the Aquarium of the Pacific staff members takes you all over the world, from the Caribbean, the Bahamas, to the Pacific, Guam, Palau, many different places. And what challenge would you like to have? Is there any animal that you haven't worked on that you would like to try and treat?
That's interesting. A new species that we don't typically work with. Maybe some of the more rare, uncommon species of animals that come out of some of the rarer places on Earth.
Aquariums deal with animals that are in water. What's the difference between taking care of these kinds of animals than those that live on land?
There's a number of different types of animals that live in aquatic environments. So there's vertebrates and invertebrates. Vertebrates that live in aquatic systems are fairly similar to terrestrial invertebrates with some adaptation changes. So when we work on those types of animals, we have to accommodate their need to have water flowing over their gills or past their bodies to be able to oxygenate their bodies and stay alive. So we've come up with systems that allow us to anesthetize those animals so that they're asleep and not stressed out by the procedures that we're doing, and they're not dangerous to us while we work on them. And we're managing to keep their physiology and lives under control and supported while we have them anesthetized and can work on them. A lot of people would ask, like, oh, do you have to dive in the tanks to go treat the animals? And that doesn't happen as often as us working on them out of the environment when they have a need. But occasionally we do have to have a team of people that are experienced and capable to be able to go in and administer medications to, say, a shark underwater or fish underwater, because catching that animal would either be too stressful for that animal repetitively for a treatment, or it would just be really, really difficult. We have to come up with a lot of innovative solutions to deal with the requirements of those aquatic animals. Invertebrates are even more different, stranger. Their body systems are completely different. They don't have skeletons. They don't have complex brains. And so trying to figure out how to manage their problems and get them treated to keep them healthy when they are having a problem can be very challenging.
What has been the most challenging operation that you've had to perform?
Oh, goodness. We face challenges all the time. Sometimes the challenges can be related to the size of an animal, like we might be working on a little 2-gram seahorse or frog. Sometimes challenges come in the form of not having medication that treats specific parasites or disease problems that an animal might have. The size of the animal can be an issue. How do we administer the medication to the animal? We might not be able to get it to eat the medication in a food item to take its medicine. How do we, without compromising its welfare, come up with a plan to be able to get it to get those treatments so it can heal and survive, recover? Every day we have to use a lot of innovation, a lot of problem solving to try and come up with solutions to those challenges. And we've had some really challenging cases.
You have so many animals here, and you have to keep a constant eye on them to be sure they're healthy, and they all have many different requirements. And I'm looking at the exhibits. They all look healthy. You're doing a superb job. Thank you you so very much for all your good work. Thank you for being my guest.
Thanks for having me. And I'd just like to mention that we do have a big job here caring for a lot of different animals, and it takes a team of really dedicated and caring people to do that. And so it's not just myself here managing the animals' health. I have a veterinary team, we have an animal care team, a life support team, a lot of people who are really committed to making sure that these animals have good quality of life and welfare while they're here at the aquarium.
And if people do want to visit, come to Long Beach, California, in Southern California, and you might get to see Dr. Lance Adams working on some animal. Thank you so very much for being my guest.
Thank you, Nancy. It was a pleasure to be here.
I have been speaking with Dr. Lance Adams, a veterinarian who is the Director of Veterinary Services at the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach, California. I'm Nancy Perlman. Thank you very much for joining us, and do tune in again next week.
If you would like free information about these environmental issues, go to www.ecoprojects.org or call 310-559-9160. Environmental Directions with your host, Nancy Perlman, is a community affairs program of the nonprofit organization Educational Communications and this station.